A very warm welcome to you to the 2015 World Orienteering Championships from sunny Scotland. I'm Hugh Dan McLennan, my co-commentator is Clive Allen, and welcome to the first 2 days of competitions at the championship event, which were focused on the Moray Firth coastal towns of Nairn and Forres. And the beginning from Grant Park of the sprint finals, where some of the runners we had seen on Saturday were running on their own behalf.
And here the runners start 1 minute intervals, Hugh Dan.
And the fastest runners go at the end of the course, 43 runners in this competition in all. Judith Wieder and Tove Alexandersson were big names who didn't start, and that opened the door for Maya Allam as she built on the success of the previous day. And it wasn't long before we began to see the pattern emerging, Clive, of how the runners were going to set the pace.
Yes, indeed, and this runner here, Rahel Friedrich, is one of them, a very strong Swiss runner, setting a time of 40:30 there for the 3.8 kilometres. 14 minutes is pretty fast going. And here we come to the very last starter, Minni Kauppi, who is a very experienced lady from Finland, who has been running in many world championships and has got several gold medals in her time, as she sets off on the course looking very determined and round the corner into the myriad of alleyways that there are. The tracking here shows the routes they took through the first control, and from 2 to 3 you can see some runners went a long way round to the south, others went a long way round to the north, because there was no direct way through all of those passages. And Maya Alm, the fastest of the three there, ahead of Sara Lucia from Switzerland and Minni Kauppi from Finland, who we see again here now in the town. Hugh Dan.
Running splendidly, great flow in the way she's running, her concentration levels absolutely high, the rhythm of her running. Some of the choices she had to make were very interesting at this stage, and we'll see a very good example of that as she negotiates some of the difficult alleyways and walls and openings that are put in front of these runners to test their physical endurance, their physical decision making. And here she had the first big decision to make. Most of the runners had gone straight across the road and up an alley. She chose to go left rather than through the alley, and off she went round the corner. But by now, Clive, the lead of Maya Allam seemed to be even too much at this stage.
Yes, it did. She has led through, as you can see, to control 6. She was already 11 seconds in front of anybody else. And there's Minni Kauppi going through, 17 seconds down on Maya Alm's time. So Alm, again, looking for a second gold medal, I think, in today's race, as Minni Kauppi chases through. Here's Maya Alm, though, out on the course, coming to the second TV control, 2.6k through the course. She's going very strongly, Hugh, down here.
Absolutely classic style, using the map and her decision-making, marrying them together and maintaining her flow and her rhythm and her running as she approached the tree, as she came within sight of the finish. The crowd knew they could track her. They were seeing her on the pictures on the main screen, the big screen. This was the entrance to the arena. She could begin to sense now the finishing straight opening in front of her. The crowd knew she was coming. She knew she was nearly home, and the fantastic welcome she got would have put an extra spring in her step as she completed the marks, going through and then turning round on the final finishing straight, Clive.
Yes, here we can see the tracking again, how this is a replay of all the tracking, showing how Maya Alm was so much faster through this middle part of the course than any of the others. And Minni Kauppi picking a route, taking a lead over Sara Lucia here at this point. And Minni Kauppi is trying very hard here to make up some time. She lost a bit early on around control 6, but here she's not she's a long way still behind Maya Alm, but in some kind of contention. Here we can see her in the town, crossing a road just to come into some parkland. Fences have to be climbed, all sorts of obstacles in the way in this course, as she heads now through towards the second of our TV controls. Part of the course through some extremely beautiful flower beds, which Forres is absolutely renowned for, and also hanging baskets, which we've seen. Often a winner in the Britain of Bloom competition, I gather. But here is Minna Kauppi being urged on by the local crowd who've come out to watch the race, as well as the orienteers in the arena, as she heads for the control. And we'll get a new marker time on Minna Kauppi as soon as she reaches the bush in the distance there. Time ticking away. How is it going to be for her? And she goes through in the new third place. So she's 35 seconds down on Maya Alm, but she's picked up some positions from what we saw her earlier, Hudan.
Meanwhile, Maya Alm was finishing, approaching the line in fantastic style, absolutely fresh. She looked as if she could begin the race again, and she knew, even at this point, that she was the front runner and that she had set a virtually unbeatable mark, having run in the race, the relay race, the previous day, to produce a performance like this and to have a lead of something like 40 seconds by the time it was all over was a completely outstanding performance. The congratulations of her teammates, understandably, but meanwhile, Kauppi had still not given up the chase, Clive.
Minna Kauppi was running really hard here at this point, and here she comes down towards the finish. Is this going to be a medal for Minna Kauppi? I think Maya Alm certainly got it in the bag, but Minna Kauppi, a very, very experienced runner and very, very determined, and on good form at the moment, is pushing it really hard all the way to the line. Is she going to get there and get to a medal position? It's a long way round the bend. Time is ticking away. All the Finnish flags flying, you can see there, and everybody urging her on, and it's ticking away, and there she crosses the line, and she just is outside. 6th place for Minna Kauppi. There were 3 runners within a second there, and they were just 3 seconds outside medal position.
Well, eventually the clock was to beat Minna Kauppi. She was the only one that could have robbed Maya Alma of her victorious celebration run as she set off with her national flag along the finishing straight and back towards us in the finish. Absolutely jubilant performance of wonderful class, a fantastic demeanour, a superb technician, a wonderful athlete in every respect, and commanding the respect of her colleagues and fellow competitors, Clive.
Yes, absolutely, and here she's being congratulated by Nadia Volunska, who took the silver medal, the Ukrainian runner, and also by Minna Kauppi, sorry, first there, and then by Galina Vinogradova from Russia, who has ended up in the bronze medal position. The silver medal went to Nadia Volunska of the Ukraine. But a very, very happy Maya Alm now being greeted by the Ukraine runner and going through to the plaudits of her teammates there out in the back part.
Nice.
Absolutely delighted, and there the confirmation of her 40-second lead over Volinska of the Ukraine. Vinogradova then 52 seconds behind, and then the Swiss, the Australian runner Hanny Alston coming in well at 5th. Kauppi, as we saw, finishing 6th, and in the top 10, the margins absolutely minuscule over the whole race, and just a measure there of how much Kauppi had done. Alison Crocker was a good finisher for the States, the United States, in 15th place, finishing strongly there. That's a good result for her. Charlotte Ward was the best of the British finishers at 19th. And there we have the rest of them, the French runners coming in 27th, 28th and 29th coming in together.
Winning knows no season, and this fall is no exception. As the heat fades and the cold sets in, strength, ambition, and endurance forge ahead in some of the autumn's biggest championship events. The World Championship year continues on Universal Sports Network, where champions are made.
Jonas Leandersson of Sweden got everything underway, immediately focusing on his map. A large crowd waiting for him at the first corner as he took off at pace round the initial stages, through all the trees in the parkland, in perfect running conditions, in good order, as they set off through the trees, taking them round past a hugely knowledgeable and very appreciative crowd, taking their pictures and posting them on the World Wide Web almost before the runners had passed.
Jonas Lo Andersen coming down through to the spectator passage here. He's a double sprint European champion, is Jonas, so he's got some pedigree, and he's never won a gold medal at World Championships level, and maybe this is the occasion, because he's having a pretty perfect run here and setting a very fast time compared to the runners before him. He's the 30th runner out on the course of the 45 starters today, so 15 more to follow him, all of whom in fact were in better positions in the qualification races, because the winners of those races start last in the field. And here's Jonas Lo Andersen coming now into the finish and overtaking the runner who started 1 minute before him, and looking still pretty tired but running strongly, heading for the line, and we'll pick up a time very shortly as he comes through the finish run in here, and his time today 13:13.1. That is the time which the remaining 15 runners are going to have to try to beat.
He had established his mark there when Jerker Leisel, the last runner, prepared to leave from the start, set a fantastic pace at the start. If we see here how quickly he took off, total concentration on his map. In fact, he almost overshoots the first corner. Such was his pace and the tight angles. And there are some of the obstacles. Martin Hoopman of Switzerland moving smoothly. Only 6.2 seconds he was down at one stage. And he looked good. At Lee Anderson, his mark was looking like quite a challenge as they stretched out, chasing that time that he had set. Very strong coming into the finishing area. Hoopman, stylish runner coming around the big tree, and then as he entered the arena, he looked like he was going to make up even more pace as he came down the hill. And he finished particularly well.
He's the younger of two Swiss brothers. Daniel finished earlier, you can see him there, 9 seconds after Lee Anderson's time, and Martin, 6 years younger, heading for the finish in what looks as though it's going to be a better time than his brother Hugh Dan.
He finished remarkably well, picked up a good head of steam coming down off that hill there, and in fact moved, the two brothers in fact moved into second and third place there. Martin just 2.2 seconds off the pace, and his brother slightly behind. And
here's Yannick Michels of Belgium, and oh dear me, he tried to hurdle the fence there, and he's hurt himself a bit, I think, doing that fall. And he's been in the lead for such a long period of the race, and now he's clearly not running as smoothly as he was beforehand. An extremely fast runner who has won several very big international events in the last 2 years. He was a favourite for today's race, but he's looking as though he's lost a bit of the speed. We'll see when we get to the TV control here how his time compares to Lee Anderson's time. Just before, it's looking very much the same, but now I think it's dropped a bit. Let's see where he fits in here. Yes, he's lost 5.76 seconds almost on Lee Anderson through the fall and the effects of it. Coming down now to the spectator area for the run-through before he gets to the finish, but I'm afraid that's his race run today.
Well, this was a huge error, just mistiming his jump completely. He was the only runner we saw making that mistake, but it was eventually to cost him very dearly, and it robbed him of all his time that he had in hand. Jerker Leisel, meanwhile, was running freely out in the course. He reached the TV control booth. We knew he was a fast sprinter. We could anticipate he was building the pace towards the finish. He was heading into the arena, and he clearly at 8.1 seconds could have enough in hand, taking a shortcut to the other side of the tree, joined by our cameraman running beside him, heading into the arena. A medal still within his grasp, and a possible second medal for Sweden as he went on the run through, passing behind our commentary position. And meanwhile, Michaels came to the line, the Belgian. The fall had cost him everything at the end, Clive.
Yes, it did, and he's not going to get a medal today with this time, unfortunately. He's completely ruined his chances with that fall, and here you can see his expression. He throws the map on the ground. He was very disappointed by that. He had a medal in his grasp there today until that slight error of judgment made all the difference, and it hurts. It clearly hurts. It hurts mentally, it hurts physically, and you can see there, oh dear me, oh dear me, oh dear me. Well, these things happen, and back out on the course we've got Jyrka Lysell here, heading for the finish now, and he's a very strong and determined character from Sweden, is Jyrka, who also has won a few gold medals in international races in his time. He's trying hard to chase Lee Anderson and Hubman's time down and see if he can get into a medal position. The Swedes there on the hill are egging him on. He knows he's got a chance here, and he's heading with absolute determination, straining every sinew to get to the finish line as quickly as possible. A sprint of well-known regard. Here he is heading for a possible medal in a World Championships. Round the bend and down towards the finish line. Is he going to make it? It's going to be close. He gets there, and it is. He's the bronze medalist.
So confirmation there of the finishing places. Johannes Lee Anderson with the gold medal in first place. Martin Hubman 2.2 seconds adrift in second place. And the bronze medal from Jyrka Lysell, who finished so well, 4.9 seconds there adrift. Bostrom, Michaels, and then Daniel Hubman in sixth place. A good finish from the Spaniard Andreo Blaines, who came in seventh. And Chris Jones, the best of the British finishers, in eighth place. The defending champion at number 9 was Soren Bobach. Further down, Scott Fraser came in for Britain at number 13, and then he was followed by Robert Merle, who finished very strongly as well, and also Murray Strain at 18 for the British team.
UniversalSports.com brings you all the action of Universal Sports Network. Anytime, anywhere.
He's got that ball.
Sign in with your TV provider to enjoy live streaming, on-demand video, and up-to-the-minute highlights. Never miss another history-making moment.
Bond breaks the record.
UniversalSports.com brings you year-round exclusive coverage of world-class events and championships from around the globe.
Win number 9.
Watch when you want, where you want, at UniversalSports.com.
And so it was on to Tuesday, halfway through the World Championship, and on to a new location 3 miles southwest of the weekend venue, in front of Darnaway Castle, the home of the Earl of Murray, the 19th century castle as it is now, and the middle distance races. The women's race, first of all, was 5.3 kilometres, and the men were looking forward to a race of 6.2 kilometres. The women to start first, some way away from the arena, but the crowd in the arena watched Emma Johansson here taking off from her start and setting off into the forest along, first of all, a section of track and then into the depths of the forest. Quite dry underfoot. Plenty of free running, as we'll see as the races develop during the afternoon. Dry conditions underfoot, some open spaces, and plenty of opportunity for the runners to make good pace, and pretty direct running also. Not many changes of direction, but out in the open spaces there were some opportunities to enjoy some of the magnificent scenery and the very thick undergrowth clinging to the runners' legs as they went through. 54 is Emma Johansson, who made some steady ground as she began to work her way through the course. And the runners were starting to bunch up at this point as some of them made their choices. Kat Taylor featuring strongly, and this was Mari Annika Bilstam, world ranking position number 12, and bound to be one of the favourites, Clive.
Yes, that's right. She was indeed, and she looks very concentrated there at the start as she waits for her moment. They started at 1.5 minute intervals in the middle distance here today. and she concentrates hard going out into the course. And here we can see Merja Rantanen of Finland in the thicker part of the course, quickly finding that control. But here you can see the going is quite slow. There are a lot of brushings and very, very much terrain to worry about there. And here we can see that the Swiss girl, Hausberth, was just that little bit slower, 31 seconds. Emma Johansson went through in a new leading time at control 17 there of 13:13. And here we can see Merja Rantanen looking around somewhat in the trees here. We've got very low visibility in some of these sections, and it makes the navigation so much harder. And there are a lot of small depressions and small hills in this area, making it very, very challenging indeed. Here we've got her now. She's sighted the control and comes down towards our TV control number 7. Emma Johansson the fastest here, Sabine Hausberth of Switzerland second, and now you can see Merja Rantanen going there into third place, 41 seconds down after a small mistake there.
And the rain had arrived as the finishers came in, because that corner at the bottom of the course as they turned hard left to come into the finishing arena was to be treacherous as the afternoon developed, and then some runners made better of it than others, and there were some very good, strong early finishes, setting good marks for the times, and we had a good, strong finish with Kat Taylor featuring as well. But Johansson's time of 13:13 at control 7 left Kauppi of Finland in second place.
Yes, that's right. And here we can see Annika Billstam going through 20 seconds down on Emma Johansson's time. So the second Swede here we're getting in our pictures doing very well as Emma did earlier. And here we can see Merja Rantanen coming down towards the finish in good style, followed there by Serena Jensen of Switzerland, Hudan.
And it was a good race right round the second of the corners we had in front of us in the commentary position, and it was eventually Rantanen who just had the legs to take care of Serena Jensen crossing the line, both of them totally spent, and a very good race to bring that particular part of the course to a finish, and Taylor at that point in third place.
But look at the tracking here, because Emma Johansson made a big mistake right at the end on this rather easy course, rather easy control, sorry, number 20, and this time this little mistake has cost her possibly the gold medal in her race. She really switched off thinking of the arena and made a mistake right at the very end of the course.
And running through the forest, a very good example of some of the steep inclines, although the course was relatively flat. We had a very good view with our mobile camera of all the runners as they took this final climb up to the top of the crest, and the sun breaking through the thick forestation. But at this point, the runners able to run very, very freely. Annika Billstam, number 73, was clearly beginning to pick up the pace and mark out her own performance as being something special, and she was to come into the finishing arena to head for the bottom corner, which was becoming increasingly slippy at the very bottom. She took it very tightly and took a tumble, because that could have been very treacherous if she had injured herself at that stage. And then the looping right hand turn into the finish, where she had clearly beaten Rantanen's time by a remarkable, at that stage in the race, a remarkable 50 seconds. And the Swedish women's team already celebrating what was a fantastic run of great consistency and accuracy throughout the course. Celebratory run, understandably, from the Swedish team as they celebrated their victory, and it was a magnificent run by Annika Billstam to take the gold medal position as the sun broke through. Confirmation of the final results: Annika Billstam of Sweden in first place, Merja Rantanen of Finland in second, and another medal for Sweden in third place. Emma Johansson took the bronze.
Winning knows no season, and this fall is no exception. As the heat fades and the cold sets in, strength, ambition, and endurance. Forge ahead in some of the autumn's biggest championship events. The World Championship year continues on Universal Sports Network, where champions are made.
There was hardly any room for us, or for the spectators in fact, or for the athletes to take any breath at all as we prepared for the middle distance run of the men in Darnaway Estate in front of the home of the patron of the World Championship this year in 2015, the Earl of Moray. 6.2 kilometres for the men as they set off, Clive, around this course.
Yes, their course a bit longer than the women's, and here we can see it starts off in much the same way, in fact with quite a long leg to number 1, and then through some quite tricky terrain, 3 and 4 there, careful reading of the contours needed, long leg here 4 to 5 with several route choice possibilities. Then up to 6, typical middle distance course with short legs in quite thick terrain between 5 and 8. Then round this extra little loop at the bottom, again through plenty of detailed contours across a longer bit of flat terrain to fairly accurately hopefully find number 13. Then up into this open area with quite high undergrowth in places, which is quite strength sapping and hides the contours rather because of the height of the undergrowth this year, a very wet summer. Then we're into some shorter legs in much more runnable terrain as we approach the control number 24, which Emma Johansson had so much trouble with in the women's race, and into the finish after 6.2 kilometres. A very varied course then to watch, typical middle distance, and here at the start, Hugh Dunn.
Ole Boström of Sweden, the world ranking number 4 runner, setting off for Sweden on the first of their 3 legs as he sets off from the same starting point as the women's race up the road and into the forest.
And one of the runners we were watching quite closely after a while here was Luca Basset of France, and he has a really strong style, as you can see here, through the quite thick forest. Doesn't find that undergrowth too much of a problem, and he went on to continue having a good run, whilst Daniel Hubmann here from Switzerland, a previous champion in more or less everything except middle distance, waits to set off for his run. Beside a bungalow deep in the far side of the forest, he goes off strongly and purposefully and has already worked out his route to the first control, I think, before he gets to the first corner there and heads off towards the forest.
There was a buzz of anticipation, however, as Thierry Georgiou of France came to the start line. Everybody's eyes had been on Hubmann earlier, but could Georgiou add to his 7 medals of previous occasions as he set off in his particularly elegant style, concentrating on the map and out in the field. Basset had soon established his mark on the race as he burst through the forest, running the tall, elegant style, the concentration on the map, a feature of his running in the open field. And he's running ahead of a runner from the Czech Republic there, Sederyu. And already also we're beginning to notice that Magne Daly was one of the fastest, in fact the fastest, to control point number 20. So all of a sudden the pace was beginning to raise in the men's race. Basset running freely and elegantly, planning his next moves as he came to the open field. One of the few open spaces in this men's race. The terrain was not all that difficult, but it still demanded total concentration as he set off back into the trees, and clearly he was one of the front runners. And
here we've got Thierry Georgiou coming through our first TV control, and he was just 3 seconds slower than Daniel Hubmann, who had put up the fastest time now at this point. You can see a little bit of our tracking here, which shows how Hubmann came and Georgiou came more or less the same time there, but setting off in slightly different directions out from the control.
And this was Basset coming down the incline in front of the castle. He knew where he was. He took his eye off the course, however, and clearly that bottom corner was causing some difficulty for some of the runners whose concentration was at a low ebb at the end of the race. However, he finished very, very strongly, and he set the new fastest time of 34:29.
Meanwhile, out on the open area with bright sunshine now, having replaced the rain which we had in part of the women's race, here we've got Ola Boström of Sweden heading with a couple of others across towards the two controls that we've got in this area. As I said earlier, it's not easy to read the contours when you've got undergrowth as high as this in this rather wet summer that Scotland has had, but he's clearly on track for his control, and the first one of these controls was in a depression which he's just heading down into there, as you can see, and just coming out smoothly from it towards the next control, which is about 150 meters away along a little spur, and then down into a re-entrant. Here you can see the very, very fine Scottish scenery which they were running through, although they weren't using much time to look at it, much more concerned about exactly where they were on the map and on the terrain. But here he's cleanly coming through, as you can see, into control 20, 4.6 kilometers on the 6.2k course, and came into second place there, just 8 seconds slower than Basset. Then we've got Hubman coming into the same route here, Daniel Hubman, and he's being followed here by Hector Haynes of Great Britain, and Hubman again very smoothly through this, and he looks to be in control of his race, very, very much so here. And are we going to see a new fastest time? You can see he's got 17 seconds, 16 seconds to get to this next control and be the fastest through it. Is he going to be the new leader at this point? Here he comes down, time is running out, but he's reading his map carefully. He wants to make sure he comes into it spot on and leave in the right direction. Oh, collided with it nearly. Hector Haynes just behind him there, but there we've got him 2 seconds slower than Basset at that point. Back into the finish,
Boström maintained his form all the way through the finishing straight as he charged towards the line. He would have felt that he was in with a good time because his form had been good. He maintained that form all the way to the line and finished in good style, and all of a sudden we had new names. Boström, Hubman were coming to the fore. And meanwhile,
Thierry Georgiou coming down to the control we mentioned earlier. Is he in contention here? Well, he's only just over the time of some of these others. Daniel Hubman, Luca Basset coming into this control. He's still got the chance of a medal at this point here, control 20 I would say. And he goes into 4th place, 9 seconds down to the second TV control. Here's Daniel Hubman coming into the finish.
And Hubman had maintained his form as he charged towards the line. Big support for Hubman as he came round, belting round the second of the corners within the course. And clearly then he had established 34.23, a new fastest time for Daniel Hubman.
Just by 3 seconds, a very strong finish from Daniel Hubman, something we've got to know in the past, as Thierry Georgiou here comes through the terrain and then down into the finish here. And he is running strongly here. He's got a very long loping style. We all know him very well, the legend of middle distance, the king of middle distance from a few years ago. But he's a bit off the pace. You can see he's not going to get a medal here. It's 40 seconds over Daniel Hubman's time as he comes down to the finish line here, and he finishes there in 7th place. 7th place for 5th place at this point, but just outside the medals for Thierry Georgiou. And why was that? Well, he made a mistake here. You can see Georgiou in the tracking approaching this course number 24, and a big hesitation for him there at the very last but one control has made all the difference between a possible medal and being right down out of them. So that brings the race to an end, the men's middle distance Houdan.
The mistakes had cost several of the elite runners their places in the medal positions as the order was established. The final order, confirmation that nobody could match. Daniel Hubman of Switzerland in first place. Lucas Basset held on to second. Ole Boström came through strongly in third place, and Daly did well to finish 4th. Olav Lundnes there in 8th place, and Prochaska in 10, equal with Britain's Hector Haynes.
UniversalSports.com brings you all the action of Universal Sports Network. Anytime, anywhere.
He's got that ball.
Sign in with your TV provider to enjoy live streaming, on-demand video, and up-to-the-minute highlights. Never miss another history-making moment.
Bond breaks the record.
UniversalSports.com brings you year-round exclusive coverage of world-class events and championships from around the globe.
Win number 9.
Watch when you want, where you want, at UniversalSports.com.
And so it was on to Wednesday and the relays. We were still at Darnaway Castle in Murrayshire. 3 legs in the relay race as ever, and the women were to be the first starters. The day was kind, if anything. It was warmer than the previous day had been, which ended in showers and blustery conditions towards the end of the day. Today, however, on Wednesday, the temperature was 16 degrees. It felt warmer. The humidity was less at 66%. We hadn't seen much rain during the morning, and the wind had become much lighter as well, as we all gathered in front of the castle.
Yes, and here we're using today the forest to the west of the castle instead of the one to the east that was used yesterday. A much more runnable forest overall, and much less green, although there are some open areas, as you can see there too. And the feature of the course here, of course, being a relay, is the forking. And rather complicated forking too, we found, but some legs of varying length here, and again you can see more forking in this rather complex area just to the northeast of the open section. Then the course comes back eastwards to a very open area of forest with fairly gentle features, hills and depressions. Then southwards round one side or another of the big marsh there to 2 controls, the last 2 technical controls, and then a couple of controls on the run in towards the arena and the changeover. And by the end of the course, then all of the legs have been followed by every competitor, by every team.
The klaxon was the signal for the women's race to begin as they set off down the castle driveway, and there was almost a predictability about the start because Maya Alm, who had established herself as the star of the first 2 days of the 2015 World Orienteering Championships in Scotland, took the lead and set off, taking the rest of the runners through the field and off up the incline, which they were to come back down again as they headed back to the arena at the finish eventually, and off into the forest.
Yes, and Maya Alm came through our first TV control in this significant lead there, but behind her the Russian Federation won by only 1 second, Sweden and Norway and Great Britain well up there, and Italy and a whole bunch of runners, as we expect in a relay, coming through the control in quick succession. And there were 12 competitors through in the first 17 seconds. Switzerland down in 15th place, a slow start for them at this stage. And then the Czech Republic, Bulgaria, Hungary, Germany rather, we can see. And 29 seconds for the first 19, 31 seconds France through, and so on and so on. We've 24 teams through in 40 seconds. China, Canada, and they were the first. And then we pick up Maya Alm here at the second split in our TV coverage. And by this time she had begun to establish a little gap. 17:11 her passing time, and the first one after her was Helena Jansson for Sweden, and followed very closely here by Hungary, Fanny Gurko, and Norway in the race. The Czech Republic also still up with the pace, and here we've got Maya Alm being followed by our roving cameraman, and you can see here how open the forest is. It's really very, very runnable, very direct routes being taken, and you need to be able to keep track of where you are, of course. She's reading her map carefully, looking around at these small hills and small re-entrants. Very, very important to keep on a direct line and not lose seconds in this kind of fast terrain.
Absolutely effortless style as she came into the arena along the very, very long run-in that we had above the commentary position, down towards the familiar territory to us now of the tight bend at the bottom of the course, turning round to the right-hand bend, coming into the finish and stamping her authority on this race once again, as she had done all week. Through into the first exchange, which was obviously critical. A stylish finish there. Natalia Vinogradova of Russia coming in second place to get their second runner off and running, and in third place we were soon to see Fanny Gerko, it was, coming in third place to send the next runner off. But already Denmark had established a healthy lead of more than 1.5 minutes as they set off once again into the forest.
So here we've got Ida Bobak for Denmark on the second leg, and she was all on her own already here by the second split, and as you can see, running quite smoothly through the forest. She's not a tall girl, Ida, and she has a nice running style, but her navigation is her strength, as well as having worked very hard on her running technique. Here we've got the attentive crowd who are able to see all this on the arena screen as the second leg Russian runner goes through, and this is Svetlana Mironova, who was to strongly hold on to her position here, and behind her you can see here Annika Bilstam, yesterday's gold medalist, passing through this control, and she is followed by the Czech runner Denisa Kosova. So all of these runners just in sight of each other after Ida Bobak's considerable lead through.
And then the Danes coming around again. Ida Bobak taking them in comfortably, increasingly opening up this gap to the second exchange. And who is she handing over to? Emma Klinkenberg. There could have been probably no other stronger third leg runner to take off as she strode confidently then up the incline, out of the arena, heading into the forest once again. But the Russians maintained their charge. They were still in second place as Svetlana Mironova came through, finishing strongly, and the lead at this point was 4 minutes and 10 seconds, and clearly Denmark had the gold medal firmly in their grasp unless something seriously went wrong. The Swedes, Annika Bilstam handing over to Emma Johansson, a more than capable third leg runner, setting off, and the Norwegians finishing strongly too. Maria Fasting coming in with a good finish to set them off in fourth place.
Winning knows no season, and this fall is no exception. As the heat fades and the cold sets in, strength, ambition, and endurance forge ahead in some of the autumn's biggest championship events. The World Championship year continues on Universal Sports Network, where champions are made.
Yes, then we had Finland and Switzerland, but now we pick up Emma Klingenberg coming through the forest here. She did a quick check of her map there to make sure she's out on the correct line, but we've seen all day here that the direct route from control to control has usually been the best. And here we can see Switzerland just ahead of Sweden and then Norway, all right together at this control. So although Emma Klinkenberg's got a good lead, there are actually 5 teams there who are in contention right behind her. So the silver and bronze medal fight is going to be a very exciting one at the end, though Emma Klinkenberg has all the way through held her form and come to the finish all alone to casually be able to be congratulated by her teammates Maja Alm and Ida Bobak, running down here without any care in the world to the finish. Hudan.
Fantastic finish, and there was only ever going to be one outcome, even if the finish was in its own way spectacular and highly unusual, a new version of Highland dancing from the Danish team. But there were some thrilling finishes to come after that, Clive.
Yes, the thing built up here. You can see Anna Margrethe Hausken Norberg has got a lead here, but the next 2 runners absolutely together. And this is Emma Johansson for Sweden, and it is Minna Kauppi for Finland, fighting out for the bronze medal, I think, because it looks to me as though Anna Margrethe Hausken has got the silver in the bag for Norway. She is very strong at the finish, and here she is indeed coming into the congratulations of her teammates. She is the one who is the strongest and got away from the others, and the bronze goes to Emma Johansson of Sweden with her teammates there it was too much for Minna Kalpi on the day to be able to maintain the pace through at the finish there, and they came through to be 4th place at the end.
Confirmation of the final result, the Danish team dominating from the start to finish and claiming Denmark's first women's relay title. And so we moved on to the men's competition in the afternoon. Again, the weather conditions were kind. The crowd's sense of anticipation had been built up by the spectacular performance of Maja Moller-Alm, Ida Bobach and Emma Klingenberg, who had taken the honours in the morning. Spectacular setting in Darnaway Castle. In the grounds immediately below the castle, the vast expanse of the Earl of Murray's estate, and the Earl of Murray, the patron, had raised his flag for the occasion of the second day's events at his home estate. Strong wind there, evidenced by the flag's movement, but the temperature was reasonably kind, 16 degrees again. Humidity was less, down to 62%. The wind fairly steady at 16. And the length of the course for the men, 6.9 kilometres for the men in the first 2 legs, and 7.1 kilometres in the third leg. So legs 1 and 2, 6.9. The third leg was 7.1 kilometres, and the defending champions were Sweden.
Just 180 metres of climb on the course is not a great deal in an event of this kind. Shows the forest fairly gently up and down, but some interesting features in many places. But direct routes being taken for much of the course with the women's. We'll see if the men's looks similar in terms of its character, and the crowd here enjoying the scenery. Here we've got the course coming up now, and from the start, Kite on the edge of the field there, you can see the forking start straight away with 2 alternative first controls and quite a complex collection of different forking lines coming through in a similar pattern to the women here. Then the course crosses this difficult open area on a quite long leg to controls 9 and 10 and 11 and 12, which are common to everybody. No forking in this before they get back to control they visited before. Now number 14, previously number 5, before yet more forking. And then they head off, as the women did, across eastwards, across the northern part of the forest, north of this marsh, to a point a little further north than the women were, and a long leg now across to the south side, 2 alternative controls in the last technical bit, and then towards the 2 final controls and the run into the arena. Again, a complex course, an interesting one. It's a challenging one for the runners, and here we go.
The klaxon once again was a signal for the men's must start as they set off down the driveway, with some of the newer countries taking part in the World Championships taking up the rear, and understandably taking more time with their map reading as they made their initial decisions, but the earlier and faster runners had clearly made up their minds instantly, Clive, about where they would go when they hit the forest.
Yes, they've read their map on their way out, and they know their way into the first control, and they've been looking for that. And you can see here at the first split, Switzerland had taken the lead here, and yet Belarus and Belgium were 2 of those who were well up in the field. And when we got to the first changeover, it was quite a surprise to us that Belarusia were there together with Switzerland. Switzerland just changing over ahead of Belarusia, and then Daniel Hubman going out on the second leg here for Switzerland. And he then established himself quite thoroughly on the next leg. You can see at split 4, he had set up a lead, and then there was a bit of time elapsed before we got through to the next point here.
And out in the forest, Gristwood of Great Britain was beginning to make his mark, and all of a sudden Great Britain started to move through the field and make their position as the Belarusians, although they held on for some time, they began to fade. Lucas Basset, the French runner, had showed some good form earlier, and the French were beginning to show as well. And out in the forest, the Swiss team were doing well. but Britain too were catching up and making their mark, raising the anticipation in the crowd as the Swiss runners set off clearly the front runners and now establishing themselves as favourites.
Yes, here's Graham Gristwood handing over to Ralph Street at the end of the second leg, and he's clearly pleased with himself, bringing this British team in 1:35 down. Out in the forest here, you can see that Matthias Kuberts of Switzerland is going very strongly there in the lead and has established a very strong lead. In fact, this looks very much like it's going to be gold medals for Switzerland in the men's race today. And he is being followed here by the Norwegian coming through, Magna Daly. He's, the Frenchman here coming through, Frederic Chanchan, and he's going strongly here as well, but it's too far behind Switzerland for him to make any mark, I think, on the race from that point of view. Here we can see Chanchan, and he's being followed by Magna Daly of Norway here. And Ralph Street is also not far behind, as we can see him coming to the control there. So 3 in contention for the silver and bronze medals, as we have Matthias Kuberts coming in towards the finish to be congratulated by his teammates and heading for the finish line.
There was no doubt, however, about the destination of the gold medal, and the strong Swiss team of Fabian Hertner, Daniel Hubmann and Matthias Kuberts could afford the luxury of a jog together towards the line, having completed that long run in. Kuberts almost casually coming down the finishing slope with his colleagues, and meanwhile Magna Daly had run a superb last lap to take Norway's second silver medal of the day, and in the young French team running without Thierry Georgiou for the first time since 1995, there was a bronze for the French team, and they had all edged out the British men, unfortunately, who finished in 4th place. So there, confirmation: Switzerland in 1st, Norway 2nd, France 3rd, and finally Britain in 4th place.
UniversalSports.com brings you all the action of Universal Sports Network. Anytime, anywhere.
He's got that ball.
Sign in with your TV provider to enjoy live streaming, on-demand video, and up-to-the-minute highlights. Never miss another history-making moment.
Bond breaks the record.
UniversalSports.com brings you year-round exclusive coverage of world-class events and championships from around the globe.
Win number 9.
Watch when you want, where you want, at UniversalSports.com.
Friday was the final day of the IOF World Orienteering Championships 2015 and the classic long races for men and women. The long races took place in the beautiful remote highland wilderness of Glenafric. The forest, a mix of pine, birch and oak, with steep slopes, complex contour detail and very few paths. Glenafric is classic Scottish orienteering terrain and hosted the long race the last time the world champions were in Scotland in 1999. The magnificent arena was ready for both races, with the women starting first of all, running 9.7 kilometres in a temperature of about 13 degrees. Quite chilly, it was quite humid, although it was dry when they started, and there was quite a low wind, which wasn't going to bother any of the contestants at any stage. Still some snow on the tops and the highlands as they went for quite a complex and difficult map, Clive.
Yes, indeed, and we can see the course being built up here for us, and a very hard technical leg, in fact, to number 1. Rather easier 2, 3 and 4 in many respects, but from there a leg of 2.5 kilometres, much more than most of them normally encounter, even on a classic race, all the way up to the northern end with a route choice around that lock you could see in the middle. Then a little loop around the top and another long leg through forest terrain instead of open now, through to number 8 and down to number 9, where again they come to a little group of controls, control 11, the second of the TV controls on our course today, and then a specially demanding long leg right through the forest and across the slope to number 12, and then the forest again taking them through to number 14 and out into the open, and a short run round a little loop and into the finish. Spectators had a good view of the runners in the very last part of the course, as we'll see.
Svetlana Mironova was the defending champion, who took off in a race of 40 women and started the steep climb away from the race start in difficult terrain, not quite as dense as some of it. The forest was more open, much more runnable and easier to challenge. We all anticipated quite a fast time in both races, and the women were soon setting their marks.
And starting now is Ida Bobak of Denmark, the last but one starter, who has had a 10th and 11th position in the World Championships at this distance before, but has had a gold medal on 2 occasions at junior level long distance. And here she sets off in very composed fashion up the little re-entrant here and out onto the course. She is looking for her first gold medal at senior level. Can she make it today? As she disappears over it, the course is a very technical one in many, many respects, and one of those tackling it well who done from an early stage was Tove Alexanderson.
Everyone was pleased to see her making an appearance in the World Championships, having suffered a fitness injury when Judith Wieder had pulled out. All the questions were about who would be able to compete and set an early mark. Alexanderson was running well at this stage, making good ground.
Yes, ahead of her compatriot Annika Bilstam here as she came to our first TV control, and a lead of 23 seconds there for her. So it was looking very good in the early stages for Tove Alexanderson.
Winning knows no season, and this fall is no exception. As the heat fades and the cold sets in, strength, ambition, and endurance forge ahead in some of the autumn's biggest championship events. The World Championship year continues on Universal Sports Network, where champions are made.
Now we pick up another runner coming to the same point here. This is Mari Fasting of Norway, and she went through a little bit down in 9th place at that point, 1:39. Maybe she made an early mistake, slow in getting going, but she did take some time to get underway, and here you can see her purposefully getting through a little bit of forest and further through the course. And here
the champion, meanwhile, was well underway and making good progress, defending her title, number 67, focusing clearly on the map, using the open spaces to plan her next attack. Tove, meanwhile, was galloping down through the forest, ducking and diving through the trees, soon coming to this burn, which was a sign that the end was soon coming. Difficult terrain, but able to make good speed. The question everybody was asking at this stage was how was her fitness, but she was to prove that she was more or less fully fit, with a splendid finish taking her all the way to the finishing line, where she crossed with a lead at that point in the race of about 15 seconds. The big question now, was this going to be enough for the medal?
Well, we're looking out into the forest here at our control 14, which is not all that far from the forest, and we pick Mari Fasting up again, coming towards it, and she's gained some time on Tove Alexanderson. We can see the time ticking away with a lead there at this point of nearly 1 minute, and here she's coming down into the control. This is a very, very good time for Mari Fasting as she hits the last control in the middle of the forest and comes out across a burn and out into the view of the spectators, who will see her running across a hillside in front of them. Mari Fasting then has obviously had a much better run in a part of the course, maybe one of those long legs, than Tove Alexanderson. So Alexanderson was slower than Vinogradova, as you can see at control 14, but made up on it, and more than made up on her run to the finish. How about Mari Fasting? How will it go for her? Here we can see her carefully running across the hilltops, looking for the control and spiking it very accurately there, as we can see, and heading down through the forest from there on. This was Mironova there, the Russian girl, last year's champion, and she is now heading towards the finish.
She was having a very good run. Vinogradova and Mironova both stamping the Russians' authority on the race. She came over the stile, down the hill, and by now she could see the arena heading for the burn, which was the trickiest part of the course. Perhaps we had seen most of the runners negotiate it well, but down she went, unfortunately losing a couple of seconds, regaining her feet, and that's when she came into view of the arena.
And here you can see the tracking showing the very different routes that some competitors took on some of these long legs. 8 to 9 here, Alexanderson and Bolbach coming a route west of the straight line. Minakaupi took an awfully long way round, and this is what cost her, I think, the race here, because she'd been going well early on, but not so well later on. And here we've got Ida Bolbach on her way towards the finish, coming to the last but one control. And by this time, you can see she's got the whole race well in control. She's got 3 minutes and 40 seconds to get to the finish and be the new leader. And the crowd knew now that she was going to be the champion of the women's class in 2015.
Control was her hallmark throughout the race from start to finish, as she totally dominated the proceedings. By the time she came into view above us in the commentary position, we all knew that she was well on her way to the championship. The arena knew it, her supporters knew it, her team knew it, and when she came round the corner in our full view to come to the finishing straight, she was presented with her nation's flag. She, at this point, knew she had taken the medal. Cool, calm and collected, she proceeded to stroll towards the line in fantastic style and went through the line to begin another series of celebrations for a quite superb Danish team of stars, but nonetheless a powerful and strong team together. And there the celebrations began. The happiest man in their team was their coach, Lars Lindström, who soon joined the party. And Ida could hardly contain herself as she celebrated, as it began, in fact, to sink in on what she had achieved and the manner in which she had put everyone else to the sword and totally dominated the race.
Yes, 2 gold medals in 3 days for Ida Bolbach, and 1 year after her brother got the gold medal in the sprint race in Italy, she now had the gold medal. And that confirms the results, Hugh Dunn.
Mari Fasting in second place, Svetlana Mironova, the defending champion, in third, and Tove Alexanderson, a brave effort to finish fourth. Vinogradova fifth, and Kat Taylor of Great Britain making up the 6th podium position.
Yes, Nadia Volunska was well up in the early stages, just dropped back a bit towards the end, got 9th place for Ukraine in the end. Minakaupi we saw making a rather long route into number 9 and lost some time on that, ended up 8:44 down on Ida Bolbach's time in 13th. And Annika Bilstam, who also showed up early on, didn't have the strength after maybe putting so much into the middle and the relay, and finished quite well down.
UniversalSports.com brings you all the action of Universal Sports Network. Anytime, anywhere.
He's got that ball.
Sign in with your TV provider to enjoy live streaming, on-demand video, and up-to-the-minute highlights. Never miss another history-making moment.
Bond breaks the record.
UniversalSports.com brings you year-round exclusive coverage of world-class events and championships from around the globe.
Win number 9.
Watch when you want, where you want, at UniversalSports.com.
So the sense of anticipation was building all afternoon after a quite superb performance by Ida Bolbach. And then we had the men's long race, 15.5 kilometres, 40 men in all, 32 control points in this one, Clive.
Yes, and of course they started at the same place, but to begin with they went into an area of the forest which the women didn't go to, at the western end here of the map. Very detailed forest, in fact, with quite a lot of contour detail, and small contour detail at that, before they had their first longer leg, 8 to 9, and then came down to 10, 11, and the first TV control after 5.2k at number 12. Then much the same long leg as the women here, the 2.5k, although the control at the end was slightly different. and that affected the route choice, as we'll see. And then here a little bit which is called a phi loop, which means that if there's any following, then it stops there because they don't do all those controls in the same order. Then another long leg through here to number 21, and again 3-4 short legs before the most testing long leg, we think, on the course here, going across the slope and to a quite remote little spot, number 25, and from there into the arena much the same way as the women did. 15.5 kilometers in all and 660 meters of climbing. Certainly a test of endurance and strength as well as technical ability.
There was nobody better to meet that challenge than number 167, the defending champion, Thierry Georgiou of France. 3 out of the last 4 gold medal positions he has taken in this long classic race. He set off very quickly, and for all watching, the sense of purpose, the sense of direction and determination he displayed as he attacked the course from the very beginning was an indication that he wanted to make 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5. Daniel Hubman, however, was going to be inevitably one of his challengers, having done so well in midweek with his own title. He was a slightly more deliberate start as he proceeded up the hill through the bracken and the heather to reach the crest of the hill, where he could then survey the rest of the course. By now, he was clearly on the chase.
Yes, this was going to prove a fascinating battle, but someone who wasn't going to let them have it all their own way was Olaf Lundenes of Norway, and you can see he's a previous winner from 2013, and he set off in very strong style, very determined fashion up the slope there, reading his map carefully as he got into the terrain and got an idea of what the line to the first control would be like. So there we see him going, and now we pick up Georgiou out on the course, heading for control 12, our first TV control here, and he's got 1.5 minutes to go to be the leader there. Gustaf Bergman of Sweden, the current fastest at that point, and here he comes down to take a very, very clear fastest time at the little spot on the eastern side of a hill, and starts off on the long leg across the terrain, the 2.5 kilometers. Looking good, looking strong, and going well.
The final runners in the men's race had been delayed by 20 minutes due to an accident on the road, which led to them being late. But however, once they were on the course, there were threats everywhere. Fabian Hertner, the Swiss, he too was beginning to make his mark, and none of them could afford to look over their shoulders as they all kept up the chase.
Yes, and here's Georgiou again in the picture, coming towards the control towards the end here, and he's done well here. He's 2:36 down upon anybody else coming to this point. You can see him hitting the control very smartly there and going up over the hill and towards the area where the spectators will pick him up. And here we've got Gernot Kauschböhmer of Austria going through, and we're looking out here now specifically for Thierry Georgiou as he comes through the forest and out into the open.
Once he hit the open, there was only one thing in his mind. He could see the arena. Our cameraman set off on the chase as Georgiou charged onwards and downwards. He had one piece of forestation to negotiate, but once he saw the line, there was absolutely no stopping Georgiou. By the time he reached the line, he had a lead of around 2 minutes, more than 2 minutes in fact, but he did not look satisfied. There was just a question: had Georgiou, Clive, done enough?
Exactly, and Daniel Hubman we're looking out for now through the trees, because when we last heard of him, he was just 2 seconds up on Georgiou. Very, very tight race up to control 25. Here we're waiting at control 27, and time is ticking away, and we meet Georgiou's time now, and still no sign of Hubman. What's happened to him here? We're looking around, the camera's panning. Who are we going to see coming through the forest? It's beginning to look a bit hard for Hubman. Is there a runner coming? Here's a runner coming. Yes, but it's not Hubman. This is a different side altogether. This is a Norwegian colour. Here's Hubman. Hubman coming down, but he's 21 seconds down here, 23 seconds down on Georgiou, going through the control. He's lost 23 seconds through the last 2 controls, with Magna Daly of Denmark right behind him.
Olaf Lundenes, however, finished in some great style. to make the third medal because the gold and silver had been secured, but it was the best finish perhaps of all when Lundenis came in, because he surprised everybody by coming on so strongly towards the line. What a fantastic finish it was from the Norwegian as he made sure of the bronze medal. Having had more or less taken everyone by surprise, he threw himself across the line, and that was enough, in fact, to secure the bronze medal. So here, confirmation of the men's championships. 4 out of 5 of the last long races have gone to the Frenchman Thierry Georgiou, the legend. Daniel Hoopman, a fine second place in the silver medal. The third place to Olive Lundenis, and in fourth place, Frédéric Tranchon of France.
So we had 3 Swiss and 2 French in the first 6 today. Very, very good for both teams there. And Magna Daly, who had starred so well in earlier days, was a little bit lower down the field today.
And the British finishers even further down. That confirmed the medal tables. Denmark, a superb team effort. 4 golds, 3 golds and 1 silver to Switzerland. Sweden 1-1-3. France 1 of each. Norway 4 silvers and 1 bronze. And then Finland with 1 of each.
So this was Denmark taking the lead in terms of medals for 2 years on the run, Hugh Dan.
And that brought to the end 5 days of competition in Nairn, Forest, Darnaway and Cannock, and some scintillating performances from Maya Alm, Daniel Hoopman, and on the last day Ida Bobach and Terry Georgiou. It's 16 years since the championship was last in Scotland. We hope it's not as long before we see it again. We hope you've enjoyed the IOF Live Centre coverage of the championship 2015. From Clive Allen and myself, goodbye for now.
Goodbye.